Hello, in today's video I'll be showing you the top reasons why your brakes make noise and how to fix them. These are some examples of brakes I've done in the past, and if you ever encounter them by the end of this video you will know how to fix them and avoid them from happening again. This is your standard floating caliper brake system, most common on older and smaller newer cars. This type of caliper sits on top of a caliper bracket, with one or two pistons on the inside, and the whole caliper moves as you press the brake pedal. This is a fixed caliper system. This type of caliper is mounted fixed onto the spindle with no use of sliding pins. This type of caliper has equal number of pistons on both sides of the caliper that squeeze the brake pads from both sides. It's more of a performance brake system where more stopping power is needed. So to start, I'll be giving you guys a quick explanation of how brakes work using this brake system as a demonstration. This is a brake rotor. This type of rotor is drilled and slotted, and its purpose is to allow air through the drilled section and expel hot air through the slotted portion. This is a floating caliper brake system. Here you will notice the two brake pads on both sides of the bracket, and the rotor sits in the middle of the brake pads. So let's remove the brake caliper so we can see how the system works. This is a 2-piston caliper. On some calipers you will notice come with one bigger piston in the middle, but they still serve the same purpose. Just the 2-piston system gives you more even braking and more stopping power. The rotor sits in the middle of the two brake pads like so, and you got two pistons on the inside pressing against the inner brake pad. The caliper is mounted on these guide pins, while the caliper's fingers press on the outer brake pad, providing equal distribution of braking when working properly. In most cases, brake noise will be caused by vibrations of components that are making metal-to-metal contact, like your caliper against your brake pads, or your brake pads rubbing against your brake pad hardware. So to avoid any further brake noises, you want to correct those metal-to-metal friction noises to eliminate those annoying squeaks and squeals. This is our first and most common problem. When you got a good amount of brake pad material, or they have just been replaced, and the rotor has a good surface, but when you press the brake pedal you get that squeal noise till the car stops. If you listen when we remove the brake pad, you will hear a squeak, and that's the type of noise we want to get rid of. As I stated earlier, brake noise is normally caused by high-frequency vibrations between metal-to-metal surfaces. In this situation, we know we got a good set of brake pads and rotors, so we focus more on what's causing the metal-to-metal rubbing. These more high-quality brake pads use these kind of rubbery feeling backing plates to get rid of noise caused by caliper vibrating against the brake pads. On this brake hardware, you will notice the wear and areas where the brake pads have been rubbing against them. These pieces wear out and can corrode, giving you uneven braking and a lot of brake noise, if not replaced and are lubricated properly. Okay kitty, I'm kinda busy here. Okay, let's try this again. Here's a closer look at the wear on the hardware, and why if installed like this will definitely cause those horrible brake noises that can be heard when the vehicle slows down. Before installing the new brake hardware, you want to clean the areas where the hardware sits too. I use a piece of Scotch-Brite just to clean the surface without removing material. A lot of times it's forgotten and left as is. With the gunk under, it can cause brake pads to perform uneven and cause noises too. You just want the surface to be clean, smooth, and free of debris. We'll now want to use brake lubricant on the areas where the brake hardware sits and can potentially vibrate against the bracket. It doesn't have to be much, just a small amount will do. You'll also want to use the same lubricant on the new brake hardware, in the areas where the brake pads move back and forth. And of course I want to put lubricant on the back of the new brake pads. I used the old brake pad impressions as a reference to where to put the lubricant. And this leads us to our second most common reason for brake noise, and that's the brake tab from the brake pad rubbing against the brake rotor. If you replace your brake pads when you hear this noise, it's a pretty good chance you will catch it before the brake pad material is fully gone. This tab warns you that your brake pads are really low and should be replaced. Here's what your brake warning tab looks like against a brand new brake pad. You can see that it basically waits till the last moment to warn you. Which brings us to our third reason for brake noise, and that's brake glazing or crystallization. This means that your brakes have become hardened by heat and are no longer as efficient to stop the vehicle. This happens by heating up your brakes with lots of panic stops or readying the brakes, meaning that you're using your brakes for a prolonged time, such as slowing down from far back too often, so your brakes become really hot and essentially glazes your rotor surface. Here we got an example of semi-metallic brakes, and what they did to this rotor. They have some advantages over ceramics, like excellent grip. They work great in hot and cold weather. Unfortunately, they will damage the rotor as seen here, and since they're made with metallic material, they will cause brake squeal. And to fix this, you'll need new brake pads and either have your current rotors resurfaced if it can be done within specs, or purchase a new set of rotors. With new rotors, you always want to clean off the surface protection they use to prevent corrosion, with brake cleaner or something similar, because if left on, it will contaminate your new brake pads. And that brings us to our fourth reason, when one brake pad wears more than the other, in this case the inner brake pad. The brake pad wore long enough to go down to the metal, and even then the owner ignored the grinding noise till this was the result. This damage came from a bad caliper. When you release the brakes, the caliper slightly returns back in to avoid continuously wearing out the brake. But in this case the caliper did not return and got stuck there, wearing out the brakes down to this result. Bringing us to our fifth and final reason for brake noise, angled or tapered wear. This is a result of a caliper slide pin that got stuck, and so the caliper could not squeeze the brake pads evenly. Caliper slide pins should be able to move freely back and forth, and to avoid them from resting together, you want to make sure you have proper lubrication on the slide pins. And that just about does it for this video. Hope you guys found it helpful and informative. Please hit that like button, it does help promote my video and my channel. And subscribe if you haven't done so already. And enjoy quiet brakes when coming to a stop.